I haven't been to this tank for a while. All in all, the fish they're really looking pretty good. Tank, it really looks pretty good. We did lose a flame hawk, but it was potentially had a big bite out of its tummy, which could very well have been the cause of the death, or it could even be that the fish died and then someone bit it. But the tank's remarkably clean, considering I haven't been here for a long time. And all in all, I'm pretty happy with how it looks. I'd like them to be fed a little bit more. I'd like to see a little bit more belly in them. But over and all, I'm pretty happy. So the salt level in here is 0.021, and I'm very happy with that for a fish-only aquarium. As a fish-only aquarium, I like to keep the salt on the lower side. If it starts becoming a reef tank, then I'm definitely going to want to keep the salt on the higher side. How long since I've been here, this tank is looking very clean. And the two reasons why I think it's looking very clean is, one, the lights mustn't be on a lot, which is a good thing for the fish. And second is they aren't being overfed. And they're being fed very high quality foods. Therefore, the amount of waste being produced would be very minimal. Okay, so these fish are looking fine, but we have lost one. But we have got some major red alerts here because we've not been doing enough water changes. Now the KH is 10, which I'm happy with. The pH is 8, which is a little bit on the low side for me. The phosphate is getting up now. The calcium is okay. The magnesium is a little bit low, and what that means is that the KH and calcium won't tend to bond as well. So I definitely want to bring the magnesium up a bit to help stabilize the tank. There is a tiny bit of ammonia, which probably isn't the end of the world. But the thing I'm particularly worried about now is the nitrates are coming right up. Now, nitrate's one of those things that isn't the end of the world, but it has a cost. If your nitrates remain high, you over time are going to get problems with the fish. So I am going to suggest we do some regular water changes, basically weekly if possible, until we can get this nitrate level down. Now, I'm also going to recommend that we put some algon in the filter, and algon helps to suck out nitrate and phosphate, which is the two red problems that we've got going on there. I'm also going to add some extra polyfilter. Now, polyfilter is God's gift to fish tanks. Now, this tank is going surprisingly well considering how long it's been since a water change has occurred. I don't know how long it's been quite a while. Now, we have had some polyfilter in the filter. Now, what polyfilter is so magical for is that if you go a long time without a water change, then what happens is various things accumulate in the aquarium, which collectively we call accumulants. And these accumulants could be phenols, pheromones, and all sorts of different stuff that we don't really know that a lot about, but we know that if we're not changing our water regularly enough, these sorts of issues become a problem. So with a tank like this, I wouldn't like to see it go much longer than a month without doing a water change. And a month would at best maintain the tank. It will not improve it. So if you're trying to improve the aquarium, which in this case we are, I think we need to do water changes weekly until we get back to the point where we can do them monthly. Because right now we are seeing some alarm signs and we have lost a fish. So what inevitably will happen is if we're not improving our maintenance, then what will happen is after a period of time, maybe we might lose another fish, and after a period of time, we might lose another fish. Or alternative to that, we can just start doing more regular water changes. We can stay on top of the maintenance, and then we can avoid these sorts of issues. Now, the fact that we've gone so long without a water change now is absolutely testament, in my belief, to the use of polyfilter, because polyfilter is helping to adsorb and absorb accumulants and various things out of the water, and it's very good at fixing all the things that we don't know that we don't know. So I'm going to freshen up the polyfilter now, and that will go a long way to help subsidize for the fact that we have not been up to date with our water changes. I haven't been here for a long time, and the skimmer did not have much waste in it. And the top of the skimmer was super, super dirty. Now, what happens with a protein skimmer is if you are not emptying waste out every few days, then that means the skimmer has basically stopped working. The main reason why the skimmer will stop working is either you need to regulate the setting over time, which is very normal. You might need to close that valve off a little bit to bring the froth up. Or even if it's set perfectly, over time, you're going to start getting fatty acids, bacteria, and all this other stuff build up. And then that's actually going to stop the skimmer from working. So you think the skimmer doesn't need cleaning, whereas in reality, it doesn't need cleaning because it needs cleaning. Because you need to be cleaning a skimmer about twice a week. Otherwise, the skimmer will stop working. Then, if the skimmer stops working, you'll think it doesn't need cleaning. So it's like one big catch-22. I like to make sure a skimmer is cleaned at least twice a week, at minimum once a week. Otherwise, it stops skimming and it defeats the whole purpose of having a skimmer. I don't think you can do without a flipper. No matter what fish tank you've got, this thing is the simplest and easiest way of cleaning the glass. And out of all the jobs that is required with a fish tank, the thing I hate the most is cleaning the glass. And this makes my job easy, so I love it. Very underlooked, important job is make sure you clean whatever the lights are shining through. Otherwise, if your lights are shining through a dirty cover or dirty lids, then they really can't do their job. So every time, just give your light cover or your lids a good bit of a clean. Make your tank look so much better. Try and make sure your fish food goes in the tank, because it's quite common to see the fish food all over the lids, and that attracts the cockroaches. Now every filter is going to have an inlet, so it's really important that you keep your inlets clean. So having a device like this that you can regularly go through and clear out the inlet is really important, because we don't want any of the inlets clogging up. So you'll find it's really important to know where the inlets are in your aquarium, and it's really important to keep those inlets clean, because if the water can't get into the filter, then we're in all sorts of trouble. Single pump has impellers, including these gyro style ones, and over time these impellers need to be cleaned regularly, and occasionally they do need to be replaced, otherwise they end up just clogging up, and then if they're not able to work efficiently, then you're not going to get the water flow that you want. So they need to be cleaned regularly and replaced occasionally. I'm going to do the gravel clean. So I'm going to go through and clean all the gravel. Then once I've removed enough water, then I will get my pump on my truck and then pump all the water back in. We want to do a decent sized water change today because the nitrate and phosphate is up. And if we don't get this water change and nitrate and phosphate down, then over a long period of time, we're going to start seeing deterioration in the fish. So we want to start doing regular water changes until we get this under control. Now, the fish have immune systems. So what that means is that the fish can actually look super good, even if the water conditions are not quite right. But eventually, if the water conditions don't get rectified, the immune system will fall, and then we'll start to see problems. Exactly the same as someone that might have high cholesterol. They might go to the doctor, and the doctor says, "Hey, mate, you've got high cholesterol, you better sort that out." And he says, "Oh, I'm fine," and he is fine. But if he doesn't do something about that warning, then over time, he ends up with a heart attack. Such fun. Regular maintenance is key. But you can't just trust your animals, you need to trust your tests. On a semi-regular basis, I really want you to get in behind the reef. Now, I've pulled some rocks out and I'm going to do a reefscape today, but the amount of dirt in this sand at the back is actually really extreme. You can see all the dirt coming out there, and the sand at the front is actually quite clean. So we really need to get all that dirt out. So when you're doing your aquarium, don't just do the front all the time. Sometimes you need to move it out and get into the back. Now, if you're doing this, you must have fresh polyfilter, because there is a risk, that's particularly with this fine sand, that we're going to disturb up some hydrogen sulfide, and if that happens, we can kill our fish. So fresh poly filter is the best way to absorb any possible hydrogen sulfide to make sure that the fish are going to be okay. So spring cleans really need to be done on a semi-regular basis, at least once a year. Pull it all out, give it a good clean, put it all back. Put it back different, keeps it interesting for you and the fish. I do not want to change too much water at a time, or you can shock your fish. I'd rather change like a quarter, then come back and change a quarter, then come back and change a quarter. In a perfect world, I'd probably be doing that weekly until I get this nitrate and phosphate down. If doing big changes means more chance of shock. In the aquarium, you need to know where any little areas are that need cleaning. For example, in this aquarium, there's a nice big tray across the back that holds the power heads. So these power heads need cleaning on a semi-regular basis. And then this needs a good siphon on a semi-regular basis. Otherwise, all the sediment builds up. You end up with hydrogen sulfide, and that's no stabilize the water quality. I've increased our magnesium level, and this tank has had a spring clean. I've given it a bit of a redecoration, just made it look a little bit more sparse, just make it look a bit different. And I've pulled a lot of garbage out of the back. So I need to be totally prepared that a whole bunch of crap is going to settle, because I've pulled a lot of crap out of the back of this tank, and all that crap's got to go somewhere. That crap is either going to go and sit on the bottom, or it's going to go into the filter. Now, that area of the filter, the pre-filter section, is probably going to get very, very dirty in the next couple of days, even to the point where it could clog. So there's some extra filter wool here. This filter wool, this JBL stuff, I find it's really good. It works really well, this JBL filter wool. But you're going to have to keep an eye on the back there. And if the filter looks really dirty, pull it out, put some fresh stuff in. Because all this sediment that I've cleaned is going to settle. So basically, I think we need an extra water change as soon as possible, preferably next week. And this really is a matter of 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Because I've pulled a lot of crap out, there was really a lot of crap behind the reef. Because before we had a much bigger reef, and it did look really cool. The tank looked great when I got here. But the thing is, if we don't manage these risks, then the tank that looks great ends up collapsing. So I've got in the back there, I've given that all a good clean now. I've given a new decoration, so the fish have got a whole new world now to explore. But the downside of that is with deterioration of water quality, because I've dislodged a lot of this waste, and I've made the tank much, much better in the long run, but in the short term, it's probably taken a step backwards. And that's just what happens. So it's time to back up some water changes, and we really need to get that nitrate and phosphate down. Otherwise, over a long period of time, we're going to have a problem.